Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping the manhwa, The Villain's Match is Too Perfect. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps the channel. Thanks. This is Princesa Yvon Argenthoz, a beautiful young lady, the youngest daughter of the famous Argenthoz family and a talented sorcerer. You might think a girl like Yvonne would be popular, with lots of friends and suitors lining up to take her hand. But that's not the case, because Yvonne is not the heroine of this story. She's the villain. That's right, a good old-fashioned, boy-crazy villain who is currently on a date with a very handsome young duke named Roden Yales. While the whole cafe gossips about Yvonne's shameless manhunting, she smiles sweetly at the duke and asks him to lend her some money. Wow, if nothing else, you have to admire her nerve. Now that we've got an idea of Yvonne's character, let's wind back the clock to see how she ended up here. Though she's always been hated and scorned by the other nobles, Yvonne was born into so much wealth that all the finger-pointing and name-calling couldn't reach her. The soul currently residing in her body, however, had the exact opposite life. Always living paycheck to paycheck, she worked absurdly hard for very little reward. Until one day, she was hit by a truck and woke up as none other than Princesa Yvonne. Most girls would probably be upset if they were reborn as the villain and not the hero. But this girl was just happy to be in the lap of luxury, even if it was in a sickly body. Because that's Yvonne's place in this novel, a romance and fantasy story named Cordelia's Light, after the main character, Cordelia. Princesa Yvonne was born a weak woman, easily prone to disease. She fell in love with Adrian, a prince who got engaged to the protagonist, the illegitimate princess of the Kingdom of Mare. In the novel, Yvonne became so lovesick that she signed a pact with the devil to give her access to demonic powers, becoming a sorcerer of darkness. Her aim was to kill Cordelia, but in the end, the very pact that gave her power eventually took away her life. That's the old Yvonne, the original. This Yvonne has no interest in revenge, and certainly doesn't want to waste her second shot at life being envious of some prissy protagonist. In her old life, she was an orphan, slaving away to make a living. In this new one, she has everything she could ever dream of. As the youngest daughter of the Duke Argenthoz, the founder of the empire and one of the most powerful sorcerers in all the land, she's all set up for the perfect life. At this point in the story, Yvonne has yet to sign a pact with the devil, so as long as she avoids the male and female protagonists as much as possible, she should be able to stay out of trouble. Of course, there's still her father to contend with. Lord Kaiser Argenthoz is Lord of Wizards and runs his household exactly as strictly as you would expect. He's currently grounded Yvonne for something she did before this girl inherited her body. She used her magic to blow up a place that the protagonist had planned a date at. There were no victims, but still, if you wanted any proof that this girl really was a villain, look no further. Her father seems to think she's been having far too much fun for someone who's grounded, so he's extending her punishment. From now on, she will have to work 6 hours a day. For a princess, that would probably be hell, but for a girl from our world who used to work 15 hours a day, it's practically a joyride. And she does a great job too. With the kind of advanced admin techniques from the modern world, she has practically revolutionized her family's finances in a week. Her father is deeply suspicious. How did this lazy, cunning girl suddenly turn into a smart, hardworking member of the family? So he calls in her personal maid, Carol, to ask if she's noticed any changes in his daughter lately. Carol confirms his fears, that not only is his daughter working, but she also now cleans up after herself, eats less, and doesn't make a fuss when being scolded. Jeez, how bad was this girl before? Her father assumes that these drastic changes can only be the result of her love for Prince Adrian, and the public humiliation she has suffered because of his rejection. He finds himself feeling sympathetic for his daughter. After all, she's beautiful, talented, and from a very powerful family. Why should anyone turn her down? He gets himself so worked up about it that Yvonne arrives that morning to find him in a rage. At first, she's worried that she made some mistake with the paperwork he assigned her. The Lord Kaiser is shocked yet again to hear his daughter actually apologize for any potential mistakes and quickly reassures her that everything was perfect. But it only gets weirder from there. Against everything he has ever known, the Duke's daughter apologizes for humiliating the family and promises to work harder to bring honor to their name in the future. It makes him so uncomfortable that he actually interrupts her speech. I guess it would be weird if someone this close to you suddenly had a personality transplant, especially if they were nasty and selfish before. Lord Argenthoz has decided she must be depressed, so he's bought out an empty property just for her and tells her to let off some steam by destroying it. Wait, what? These rich people are crazy. Clearly, Yvonne is thinking the same thing. She says that isn't necessary, which seems to be the final straw for her father. He blows up, letting his magic rage as he asks what that Prince Adrian did to make her act so out of character. Once he's calmed down, he tells his daughter to ask him for anything at all that would make her happy. And Yvonne asks, to study. Okay, girl, you lost me there. Never would that be my top wish in a fantasy world. No way! But Yvonne takes the opportunity to learn a bit more about the worlds she's been reborn into, and tries to figure out how to use these magical abilities her character is so famous for. She's interrupted by her brother, Yvon Argenthoz, who just so happens to be an assistant professor of magic at the Academy of Wizards. Oh, and he also hates her. Well, he used to. The new and improved Yvonne comes as a bit of a shock to him. She used to be so sly that he assumed her newfound love for admin and economics was proof that she was trying to take over his position as heir. But when his sister insists that she truly just wants to help their family, he is bowled over. He runs straight to their father, complaining about how much she's changed. The two men proceed to have a quiet moment to revel in her personality switch, especially since she's being sweet to both of them these days. Then they get back to their theories. The leading one is that Adrian broke her heart so badly that she's just totally gone mad. Her father decides it might be time to introduce her to someone else, a new man who will make her forget all about the prince. Enter the young Duke Roden, that guy from the cafe in the beginning. Just like Yvonne, he has his own complicated past with a twisted family history to boot. Roden belongs to the Yales family, an ancient clan of knights that became indebted to the Argenthoz family after the sorcerers came to their aid in a critical battle against vicious monsters 18 years ago. Despite their camaraderie, the Duke Yales requested that the wizard keep his part in the battle a secret, so that history wouldn't know the knights had needed help from a sorcerer. In return, they forged an oath, promising to fulfill any request from the Argenthoz family. And after 18 long years, that oath has finally been called upon. Of all the men Duke Argenthoz could have chosen to one-up Prince Adrian, he picked Roden Yales. Is that because only a man bound by the law would willingly go on a date with Yvonne? Yikes, I hope not. Roden's butler is also very against the idea, but his master is a man of principle. His family made a promise, so he's going to stick to it. He sends his butler off for a new suit and makes preparations to return to the capital right away. Meanwhile, Yvonne is preparing with a little shopping trip for a new dress. She doesn't seem very excited, but maybe that's more to do with the gossiping townspeople. People don't bother to lower their voices as her carriage goes by, spreading rumors that if you look her in the eye, she'll cast a curse on you. Yeah, right. Don't worry, guys. She hasn't been able to cast so much as a spark so far. But once they're walking around the capital, her nerves begin to ease. It's pretty hard to stay worried in a place as gorgeous as this. She catches sight of the palace where the prince resides, and her father tries to block her view immediately. It's kind of cute that he's trying not to remind her of Adrian, even if it is completely unnecessary. Her father and brother order the finest clothes to be brought out in the boutique, wanting only the best for their little girl. With the boys showering her with compliments, it's hard to say no to any of the designs. After moving from store to store, they even start picking things out for her. I would kill to live her life. Imagine having a rich family practically throwing designer clothes at you. After their shopping extravaganza, they sit down for some afternoon tea. Yvonne thanks them for the clothes, but reminds them that she just wants to focus on her studies for now, so she plans to return at least half of those garments. Yvonne? Girl, what are you doing? Never say no to free clothes! Her excuse is that she doesn't have any occasion to wear them if she's just going to be studying, which is when the boys drop the bomb. That in 3 days' time, she'll be going on a date with an eligible young bachelor in this very cafe. When they tell her who this promising young man is, Yvonne is immediately suspicious. Why would a popular, well-known nobleman agree to a date with someone like her, considering her reputation? Barden and her father are quick to assure her that she is a perfect catch, and anyone would be lucky to have her. Aw, guys, they really are the sweetest. They're also both busy and soon rush off to attend to their duties, leaving Yvonne with one of the family guards. As soon as the Duke and his heir have left, he completely changes his tune, practically falling asleep on duty. Yvonne decides to play a little prank on him, whacking his arm and pretending a bee had landed on his jacket. But the guard falls to the ground in pain, claiming she's way stronger than she looks. Hang on, I thought she was meant to be sickly and weak. How come she made a night cry? And what is that big purple shadow growing on the ground beside her? Uh-oh, this can't be good. Yvonne is mega freaked out. She tries to stamp the shadow out, causing a great shriek from beneath her feet. Suddenly, a wicked face appears in the darkness and starts speaking to her. It calls her a great witch and says something foreboding about how this is the end. Why are they always so vague, these evil demons? What is the end? Before it can be any more specific, it suddenly vanishes. Yvonne asks the knight if he saw it too, but he just thinks she's trying to trick him again. Is it possible that Yvonne had already made a deal with the devil before she inherited this body? Because if she did, whoa, buddy, we are in trouble. Meanwhile, news of the Duke Yale's travel to the capital has reached the ears of the prince in his palace. Adrian of Bond Point, Crown Prince and Swordmaster of the Bond Point Empire, is very excited to meet the Duke. But he isn't stupid. He knows Roden is only coming all this way to meet Yvonne. When Adrian asks about it, Barden gets very uncomfortable. He doesn't want to talk about his sister in front of the guy who supposedly broke her heart. It gets even more awkward when Adrian insists that she will never be able to get over someone like him. Ew! Get a grip, Adrian! Lucky for Barden, the prince's moment of self-love is interrupted when he spots a handprint marked on a nearby tree. He wants to take a sample and mentions it to Adrian. But when the prince turns to look, there's nothing there. Okay, something shady is definitely going on, and Yvonne knows it. That's why she's been reading through every book she can find to try to figure out who or what might be after her. That evening, she takes a look around Yvonne's bomb lab. That's right, she's such a typical villain that she even has an evil laboratory. Although, it looks pretty cute if you ask me. After some careful probing with Carol the maid, Yvonne discovers a certain drawer in her desk that she ordered no one to ever go near on pain of death. Clearly, something inside there is important, so Yvonne has no hesitations about reading the book she finds inside. But she can't open it. She tries the book beneath it and finds a page about magical amnesia remedies bookmarked. Magical amnesia. Does that mean Yvonne had lost her powers? Is that even possible? This whole time, she thought she couldn't access her powers because she wasn't truly Yvonne. But it turns out this is something she has been struggling with for some time now. Maybe it's because of that sickness we've heard so much about? Either way, the book suggests that there is a cure. She just needs to grind 1 kilogram of magical gemstones and drink it continuously as a tea. The only problem is that 1 gram of the magical stones goes for 10 million gold. That means 1 kilogram would cost 10 billion. Ugh, what a relief. It's nothing too difficult. She just has to get her hands on a small fortune and then drink it. While Yvonne is freaking out about the cost of regaining her powers, the Duke is being fitted for his new date outfit. And boy, is he looking sleek. Seriously, I know Adrian is obsessed with himself or whatever, but if you ask me, this is the real hottie of the Empire. Anyway, back to our princesa. Yvonne has just found out that not only did the past Yvonne literally bomb a building, but she also sold off all of her properties and blew her money on a bunch of magical items. For such a prolific sorcerer, this girl really wasn't the brightest, was she? Yvonne is really freaking out. She has a bad enough reputation as it is. If word gets around that she's lost her powers, then her life really could be in danger. It's still playing on her mind during the date, where Roden is trying his best to act like a gentleman. That's why Yvonne asks for money, because she's so desperate to get her magic back. To her surprise, Roden doesn't get offended. He asks how much, and when she tells him she needs to borrow billions without interest, he whips out his pen and writes her a check. Holy heck, where did they find this guy? How could someone be so handsome and so generous? Yvonne is so shocked that she reaches across the table to stop him and ends up grabbing his hand. She tells him not to trust so easily. She could be a scammer for all he knows and run off with his money at once. The Duke thinks she's funny. He knows her family and he doesn't care about her reputation. And when she tells him to be wary of strange women, he says he wouldn't move a muscle if it was someone like her. Oh my God, she really struck gold with this one. Literally. Completely blown away by his kindness and overwhelmed by his charm, Yvonne abruptly announces her departure. He seems disappointed and asks to escort her home, but the princesa refuses. I have no idea why. I mean, look at those eyes. Who could say no to that? Reluctantly, Roden agrees to let her go, but on one condition. From now on, they call each other by their first names. He takes her hand and kisses it, calling her his Princesa Yvonne. It's like something out of a fairy tale. Oh, wait. The poor girl is literally swooning. She can't do much more than smile and giggle, so she agrees to call him Roden from now on. She's still thinking about him long after their date has ended. Though he has made her heart flutter, she knows she can never be with someone like him. Even if she could, she wouldn't want to ruin his good standing with her reputation. Sounds like BS to me. If her father has anything to say about it, those two will be married before you can say Prince Adrian. And speaking of the devil, the crown prince himself shows up. He tries to claim that she must have followed him here, even though he's the one who walked up to her. In the novel, Adrian was practically afraid of Yvonne. He avoided the colors purple and silver because they reminded him of her. But if this was how he acted, well, let's just say I can see why she became the villain. I'd probably make a pact with the devil too if it would stop him acting so smug. Yvonne tries to leave, but he suddenly grabs her hand. Clearly, he wants everyone nearby to see them talking, to fuel this narrative that she's the crazy ex who can't get over him. He even tries to wind her up, claiming she's trying to take the crown princess position by studying so hard and using the Duke of Yale's to make him jealous. Understandably, Yvonne is furious. She starts shaking and looks like she's about to snap, when suddenly, the man of the hour appears behind her. Duke Roden shows up just in time, placing his coat over her shoulders to hide her shaking. Ugh, could this man get any more perfect? He introduces himself to the crown prince, though it's obvious he already knows who he is. Yvonne may be too kind for her own good, but she's not going to pass up this opportunity to humiliate Adrian. She grabs Roden's arm and tells him they're on a date. They're going to go off and spend some time alone together, leaving him in front of all the gossiping nobles who are wondering what just happened. When they're finally alone together, she thanks him for stepping in. She also apologizes for getting him caught up in this whole mess, since she's embarrassed he was forced to meet her because of some age-old oath. The Duke looks deep into her eyes and suddenly takes a step forward, pulling her closer. Yvonne's heart must be racing a mile a minute. Somehow, she manages to keep her cool, while Roden plucks a fallen leaf out of her hair. A classic trick, but it works every time. He sends her home in a carriage, still totally starstruck, and heads back to his own residence in the capital, where his butler aunt is waiting to give him a coffee with what looks like 1,000,000 sugars. Who would have guessed that the dark, brooding Duke had such a sweet tooth? You'll all be relieved to hear that he wasn't just putting it on for Yvonne's sake back there. He really was taken with her, especially her eyes. Out of nowhere, Roden asks Aunt if he thinks he's handsome, which, like, duh. Don't ask me how, but for some reason after their encounter, the Duke believes that Yvonne doesn't find him attractive, even though she could hardly breathe in front of him and spent most of her time stuttering like a fool. I guess he must have been blinded by his own feelings. He's practically ready to propose already and hears wedding bells every time she calls his name. Clearly, he can't leave and return to the Northern Territories as planned. He decides to stick around for a while and tells Aunt to find out whatever he can about the princess's experience of their date. After all the drama by the fountain, Roden forgot to give her the gift. He sends it on instead, absolutely delighting Yvonne when she discovers he has sent her one of the magical gems she needs to get her powers back. Of course, it's only one tiny gem, maybe 10 grams. But with the current market, it would be worth at least 20 million gold. If she didn't need magic so badly, that bracelet alone would have set her up for life. It's also a lovely gesture from a true gentleman, but Yvonne feels she could never be with someone like Roden because she doesn't deserve him. I'm sure we all want to yell at the screen right now, but luckily, there are two strapping men to do it for us. Lord Kaiser and Barden storm into Yvonne's room after hearing the news of the date. They are relieved to see that she doesn't look too shaken up after her encounter with the Crown Prince, and aggressively remind her that any man would be lucky to have her, not the other way around. Yvonne is very grateful for their compliments and promises not to speak about herself that way again. And just while they're feeling sorry for her, she uses the opportunity to ask for some money so that she can start her own business. This sounds a lot more like the Yvonne they remember, but she swears to only take a formal loan from the head of the family, promising to pay all the interest required. And she only wants 10 million gold to start with. It may sound like a lot to us, but that's nearly nothing for a member of the Argenthoz household. Her father agrees immediately, delighted that his daughter will have a chance to learn more about business. That evening, the Anti-Adrian Hate Club regroup to discuss Yvonne's date in more detail. She hasn't actually said much about how it went, so they're hesitant to set up another meeting with Duke Yales. They're also hella mad about the Crown Prince. Although he's in a position of great power at the moment, it's not cemented. You see, the current Empress accepted him as her adopted son, and that's how he became the heir. But the rules of inheritance shake and shift at any time, and it looks like Lord Argenthoz is planning one heck of a push. Although, it's kind of twisted. He thinks that if Adrian was no longer the Crown Prince, he would have no reason not to date Yvonne. And since both of them are certain that she can't get over him, they think the best solution would be getting them together. Oh no, these guys are idiots! Just throw her back with tall, dark, and handsome. They'll be married in no time. Of course, there's another reason those two want to interfere with the imperial family. The arrival of Cordelia in the Empire was quite suspicious. She practically brought Adrian back to life on the battlefield with the kind of magic people hardly thought possible. Since she's queued up to be Crown Princess, Barden agrees to launch a subtle investigation into her background. Oh dear. I know these guys mean well, but they're doing all the things Yvonne has worked so hard to avoid. Trying to get Adrian to date her and messing with the protagonists. The next day, 2 letters arrive for Yvonne. One is from the Crown Prince, the other is from Duke Yales. Great. I wonder if the prince is writing to complain or if they somehow made him jealous. Yvonne's head is already spinning, so she decides to open the Duke's letter first. She's expecting a complaint, maybe a request for her to return his gift. But to her surprise, Roden has written a heartfelt love letter expressing his affections. He writes about how beautiful she looked and how much fun he had that day. Wait, really? She asked him for a loan and then took off. Is that this guy's idea of fun? He invites her to attend an opera tomorrow so that they can get to know each other better. Carol is delighted, but her mistress is already preparing to refuse. In her mind, there could be a million reasons why he asked her on a second date, most of which have something to do with feeling indebted to her father. I have no idea why she's so hell-bent on refusing this wonderful, handsome man. But so far, she won't be convinced. Next is Adrian's letter, which includes an invite and a threat. The invite was to Cordelia's tea party. The threat was to ensure she never use magic again. It seems he's worried about another bomb being dropped on his next date spot. Yvonne is furious that he would even have the nerve to make demands after everything he's done, and asks for a pen and paper to write her response. On the day of the tea party, Adrian is distracted. So far, Yvonne is a no-show, which is a surprise to no one except him. The guests ask about the story of the battlefield when Cordelia saved his life with her healing magic. After they're done kissing the butts of the Crown Prince and Princess, the conversation turns to Yvonne and her blind date with Duke Yales. For once, they're not gossiping about how nasty Yvonne is. Actually, it sounds more like they're jealous, especially since word has got out that he's staying in the capital just to see her. Adrian is visibly uncomfortable to hear her name, so Cordelia changes the subject. They move on to talking about skincare, of all things, while Adrian just sits there brooding like a big baby. Honestly, how did Yvonne ever fall in love with someone like him? Well, it doesn't matter now, since she's swapped men for money. While they're having tea and talking face masks, Yvonne has invested in Roden, an herb used to reduce fever. It is also the cure to a disgusting skin disease that is going to break out later in the novel. It's a good thing Yvonne remembered the name. Not only will she make a lot of money, but her reputation with the nobles will also improve. But in order to turn something readily available into a high-quality product, she'll need good packaging. So she heads into town to start building her cosmetics brand and runs into, you guessed it, the Duke. A true gentleman always has perfect timing. The passing citizens notice him immediately, making comments about how cool and handsome he looks. It makes Yvonne feel proud to be seen with him, even if it was just a coincidence. She's already drowning in his eyes before she realizes he's saying something. When she tunes back in, Roden is saying how pleasantly surprised he was to bump into her, even though she rejected his offer for a second date. She did? Yvonne, honey, get it together! There is a beautiful and very rich man vying for your attention. What's there to question? To add to the ever-mounting pile of excuses she keeps making to not date the Duke, Yvonne has lately been racking her brains to remember his character in the novel. Roden is rarely described and not seen very often, which leaves his personality a bit of a question mark. Although he has a good reputation among the other characters, she wants to be cautious in case he has something up his sleeve. I guess that sounds reasonable, especially while she's trying to keep her magical amnesia a secret. The Duke asks to accompany her on her errands, but Yvonne politely suggests he find someone more familiar with the city if he wants to look around. But in the end, he convinces her by acting all mopey and cute, so they take a walk around town. He asks if she likes shopping, and Yvonne lies and says no. He starts to think he picked the wrong gift until she reassures him that the bracelet was beautiful and made her very happy. He starts asking lots of questions while they explore, sprinkling in the odd compliment in between. The poor girl is having a hard time trying to keep her emotions under control, so she just stays quiet and nods, trying not to give away how fast her heart is racing. Before long, they bump into two of the Duke's acquaintances, Viscountess Francia and her daughter. She's obviously trying to make an introduction to get Roden's attention, but he's not interested. He basically brushes them aside, obviously far more interested in Yvonne. Ugh, I don't get it! How can she resist someone this charming? If it were me, I'd have given in the moment they met. But Yvonne just keeps adding to the excuse train, and suddenly, she remembers something from the book that provides an ulterior motive for the Duke's attentive attitude. You see, there's a secret research organization in the Empire. They conduct secret investigations into private matters that can't be announced to the public, and has a close connection to one of our 4 founding families, though no one knows which. But if the Yales family were responsible for that organization, it might clear up some questions. Her theory is that her father set up the meeting, but the Duke has only persisted in their communication for the sake of gaining intelligence on Yvonne, a potentially dangerous member of the Empire. It sounds kind of paranoid if you ask me, but it's not so far from the original plot. When Yvonne grew more and more evil, the Crown Prince had her secretly watched. So in her mind, there's a chance, however small, that Roden is in on this plot and is trying to get close so he can influence her actions. Wow. Is it just me, or is she starting to sound a little crazy? I mean, come on. Doesn't a Duke have better things to do with his time than play spy? As we know by now, Yvonne is nothing if not stubborn. She decides to take this opportunity to prove she's not dangerous and leads Roden to a cosmetic store to help her pick products. They end up at a very fancy shop that only serves nobles. Thinking they might have what she's after, Yvonne asks the owner to explain a few of their items, looking for anything with herbs or a sign of quality in the products. The owner is very proud of her stock and insanely knowledgeable about every item they carry. So Yvonne decides this is the place. They'll be her best shot at turning Rhodea herbs into her own line of cosmetics. The Duke is watching all of this with great interest but doesn't say a word. She invites him over and asks for his hand, spreading a bit of moisturizer on his skin. Kind of a weird thing to do on a second date, but Roden is so obsessed with her that he doesn't seem to care. In fact, he's kind of zoned out. Yvonne was so busy admiring his hand that she hardly noticed. Thinking she's offended him, she suddenly apologizes, saying she just wanted to return the favor for his gift. Before he can even say a word, she tries to run out of the store, too embarrassed to stay a minute longer. He catches her just before the door and makes some rambly excuse about how swordsmen should take care of their hands. Yeah, okay, Prince Charming. It's all right to just admit it was a little creepy. Back at the Green Palace, the Crown Prince hasn't stopped thinking about Yvonne. It's like they've switched places. This time around, Adrian is the one obsessed with her. So he's not a happy bunny when he overhears his guests gossiping about her second date with the Duke. Despite everything he's said up until now, Adrian is definitely attracted to Yvonne. He's so delusional that he thinks this whole situation is one big plot to make him jealous. Sheesh, how How stupid can you get? Poor Cordelia is left behind, wondering what's gotten into him. According to the story, the prince rejects Yvonne, so why is he acting like a lovesick puppy? Instead of being dejected, Cordelia is determined to win him back. In order to do that, she wants to make him jealous with Yvon Argenthoz of all people, the very man who is currently investigating her. Interesting. I wonder if he'll go along with it. On the other side of town, the date is wrapping up, with Yvonne having gifted Roden one of the creams as a present. He's making a big effort to show her his appreciation, showing more interest in a hand cream than any man in history. Aw, isn't he the sweetest? Then they come to a halt. The Duke is about to ask her something when suddenly someone screams Yvonne's name from across the street. Roden arrives in a huff, shoving himself in between the lovebirds. He whispers to Yvonne that rumors of their date have already spread through half the city, including the Imperial Palace. He makes a polite introduction to the Duke, who points out that they've already met and even compliments his good looks. Well, that's certainly thrown him off guard. Roden even invites Roden and his sister to have dinner at his lodgings, but the young Duke flat out refuses and even gives the Duke a little talking to. He is proud of his sister for pulling herself together and starting a new life, and doesn't want Roden to come in and mess that all up. After all, she said she wasn't interested in dating. Oh, Roden, always right on time to ruin a perfectly good thing. The poor Duke is absolutely heartbroken. Yes, she refused him on a second date, but they've just spent the whole day together and had a lovely time. Look at his little face. When he gets back to his estate, he's all sulky. He asks Aunt how to woo a woman who doesn't want money, luxuries, or even a boyfriend. Although, I think he just answered his own question. But he has a reason to be confused. After all, she gave him a gift and spent time with him, but now she's not interested? Aunt thinks she's been messing him around on purpose, keeping him hooked so she can toy with him. Now the Duke thinks he's just being strung along, one of many that she has her eye on. And though that couldn't be farther from the truth, he quickly decides he doesn't care. As far as he can see, the biggest obstacle to their relationship is the Crown Prince. To remove that obstacle, he decides to get in touch with the mysterious third prince, who we've heard almost nothing about so far. Back at the Argenthoz household, Yvonne is giving Roden an earful for butting in where he wasn't needed. It might seem like he's a blundering idiot, but he's just being a typical big brother. After the whole fiasco with Adrian, it's no surprise he's going to get protective when a new man enters her life. He is pondering all of this in the bath that evening when he suddenly remembers a certain artifact he procured from the Green Palace for investigating. It looks like it has the same gem as the bracelet Roden gave his sister. But when Roden triggers the gem, a horrifying centipede creature suddenly appears. Before Roden even notices it, the centipede has tripled in size. It's almost as tall as the ceiling and tries to attack him right away. He screams, dropping the bracelet while his mind races for solutions. It seems like some kind of demon. The strange fog around its body looks like dark magic. It's a good thing this guy is such an accomplished wizard, or else that centipede would have had him for dinner. Instead, he wards it off with a protective spell, trying to tell if it's being controlled by someone else. Clearly, this was a planned attack. Any dark magic would have been sensed by the Argenthoz guards by now. Since they haven't arrived, Roden can assume magic is being used to prevent any external contact. Is this perhaps the work of the same devilish shadow that went after his sister? Unaware of the giant insect battle going on a few doors down, Yvonne is in her own room being taken care of by Carol. When they hear Roden scream, they run to his room right away. Carol goes to get some help, while Yvonne walks in alone to find her brother fending off the monster with his magic. Hey bestie? It's very sweet of you to want to look after your brother, but have you forgotten the whole magical amnesia thing? I don't think that's a room you want to be in. When Roden notices her, he tells her to use some offensive magic. Of course, she can't do a thing except stand there and nearly get sprayed by poisonous gunk. He manages to protect them both, but it isn't long before his shield breaks. He's running out of magic and he can't beat this thing alone. But the paralyzing poison has got them both stiff and hardly able to move. It looks like Roden is about to be insect food. But at the last possible moment, Yvonne grabs the bracelet, throwing it with all her might towards the demon. It doesn't look particularly heavy, but somehow that hit alone is enough to make the demon pass out, dropping to the floor and relinquishing Roden. Maybe the bracelet had some kind of repellent? Otherwise, I have no idea how a hit that light managed to take down a thing that big. It doesn't make any sense, which is exactly what the demon's master is thinking at that very moment from behind her crystal ball. Who would have guessed that little old Cordelia was responsible for an attack like this? Oh, and guess what? She sent the shadow to watch over Yvonne as well. The heroine truly has become the villain. The monster is dead, but it seems the attack took a toll on her too. The demon was a high-level Colin and shouldn't have been killed just with a bracelet. She's also confused as to how Yvonne heard the commotion from outside, since there were spells in place to block any sound from escaping. Looks like Cordelia's focus has once again switched to Yvonne. I'm sure there's only more trouble up ahead for our girl. The Argenthoz siblings manage to contain what's left of the demon in a small magical sphere, which they bring to their father. He confirms that this beast is the work of a very dark wizard and is shocked to hear that it managed to get inside the mansion. The windows were locked, and besides, I'm not sure something that size could have just slipped in. That means it must have already been inside the estate before the attack. Barden thinks he could have picked it up from a battlefield, but his father says that's not the case. This kind of creature can only be wielded by a powerful black wizard, who has to contract their own life as a guarantee. That means if the creature died, so does the wizard. Since they're closely connected, the wizard also cannot go far from their demon, so whoever is responsible for this mess must be here in the capital. Which is not good news. Dark wizards are those who make a contract with the literal devil, like Yvonne would have if the original plot had played out. They incite chaos and bring in vicious monsters to cause war and violence. The Empire has strict regulations over information about black magic and harshly punishes any who are found to be using it. The idea that one has made their way into the city undetected is troubling, to say the least. So the Duke orders his children to keep his attack secret while he steps up their security and launches an investigation. He asks how they managed to kill the demon, at which point Barden reveals the bent and broken bracelet from before. Whoa, if Yvonne can literally bend metal, then she's a lot stronger than we thought. And her dad is just as shocked. He asks why she didn't just use her magical powers, and Yvonne hesitates. Maybe if she told them the truth, they would help her buy all the gems in the world and she could get rid of her magical amnesia ASAP. Or maybe they will be suspicious and start doubting her change of heart because she kept this huge secret. Before she even has to make a decision, Barden speaks for her. Since he was in the grip of the demon, it would have been dangerous to use a magical attack and could have hurt them both. Now, that's obviously not true. There was plenty of time to hit the beast before Barden was grabbed, but maybe he thinks she's embarrassed for stalling in front of her first demon. Kind of sweet that he's covering for her. Her father is also touched. Yvonne's strength reminds him of her mother Camilla, who so far we've heard nothing about. The kids immediately perk up upon hearing her name, so the Duke goes deeper. Their mother was a knight with incredible power. In fact, they fell in love after Argenthoz saw her beating up a brown bear with her bare hands. Well, I guess that explains her super strength. After that blast from the past, Barden tells his father that Duke Yells has been persistently flirting with Yvonne and making her uncomfortable. He says the rumors of their dating are everywhere. He was even interrupted in his own classroom by people talking about it. And just as you'd expect, her father is furious. He tells Yvonne to let him know the second he tries it again. The Duke will sort him out, all right. Poor Yvonne has barely been able to get a word in or explain her side of the matter. Even if she could, the opportunity slips by when a servant announced that a visitor has arrived for the princess. This is literally the first time anyone has come to drop in on Yvonne, so you can see why her brother and father would be so surprised. But this isn't one of the members of her complex love triangle. In fact, the visitor in question is Cordelia, the very same dark wizard they were discussing just moments ago. Wow, you'd have to be pretty bold just to walk right into the Argenthoz estate after that. And it looks like she's brought something with her. Of course, Yvonne has no way of knowing that Cordelia has taken her place as the villain of the story. As a fan of the original novel, she looks at this girl and sees a pure heart and warm soul. Oh, how little she knows. She's trying to rack her brains as to why Cordelia would come and visit Yvonne. Nothing like this happened in the book, so why is she turned up? Cordelia starts by acting polite and innocent, thanking her host for accepting her visit, even though Yvonne has been known to hate her. Of course, that was the old, crazy Yvonne. This new model just tells her calmly that she has no reason to hate Cordelia anymore. For some reason, Cordelia takes that as a sign that Yvonne feels confident she can win back Adrian and starts crying. It turns out, all this is just a smokescreen. The real reason the protagonist is here is to scope out her enemy, to see if they suspect her, and to dispose of the bracelet if possible. In order to do that, she needs to act like the weepy, pathetic girl who only cares about her boyfriend. It's a clever plan, but man, is it annoying! She goes on this whole rant about her relationship with Duke Yales and how it can only be an attempt to get the attention of the prince. I guess it does look suspicious that they kept meeting in the capital, so near the imperial palace, but that was all an accident. Barden and Argenthoz, who are listening at the door, are getting angry on her behalf. Her dad is so furious he can hardly contain himself, so his son distracts him with some news. This mysterious third prince they've been attempting to reach has refused a meeting with the Duke, supposedly due to ill health. Though from a brief scene with the man of the hour, it's clear that's not the case. He refused both Yales and Argenthoz, who are attempting to contact him. Though why he wants to stay in solitude is unexplained. The third prince is none other than Felix Dilk Burbent, a sage-like man who lives with his aged mother in a green, luxurious palace of his own. 18 years ago, the Empress Giselle lost her 2 sons and had no other successor. She adopted Adrian, son of a concubine, to become the crown prince, causing outrage at the time. Although Adrian was a popular choice, he was only 4. Meanwhile, Felix was a bright young boy with good morals and a mother from a noble family. It was a big shock that he was pushed aside, so the nobles who supported Felix raised a protest with the emperor. But his mind could not be changed. In an attempt to secure her own position, the Empress even went so far as to order Felix to take a secret medicine that he couldn't tell anyone about. He was smart enough to know what kind of potion was in that bottle, but he took it anyway, thinking that his mother would have a better life without him. Whoa, that's some dark stuff for a kid. In the end, there was nothing in the potion but water. That's because his mother had already taken the poison in the hopes that her son would never touch it. She survived the poison, but it took a big toll on her system and she began to mentally degenerate. That must be why he refuses to get involved with court politics. He has to protect his mother and the peaceful life they have together. Talk about a tragic backstory. Over in the Magic Tower, the Duke Argenthoz knows that the prince's health is obviously an excuse. He also knows the prince would do just about anything to avoid appearing before the Empress. But that doesn't make it any less irritating that he wants to ignore reality and stay hidden in his little hole. These are the Duke's thoughts as he's walking through the lobby. He's so focused that he ends up bumping into Duke Yales from behind. Roden is polite and courteous as always, but his frequent compliments make Argenthoz wary. A smooth talker like this was a dangerous person to let into his daughter's life. As it turns out, Roden Yales, the ultimate swordmaster, has come to the Magic Tower to find a teacher, since magic would only improve his skills on the battlefield. Seeing a man from such a prestigious family of knights take an interest in magic quickly changes the Duke's opinion of Roden. Despite himself, he ends up kind of liking the kid, especially after lots of compliments about his daughter. The deal is sealed when Roden expresses the same hatred that the Duke has for the Crown Prince, who broke Yvonne's heart. They walk off whispering together like schoolgirls. I love how this man can win anyone over. This guy was cursing his name not 2 chapters ago. Before he even knows what's happening, the Duke has made a friend with Roden and even invited him around for dinner. Yay! That gives him another chance to woo Yvonne, which was probably his plan all along. Back at the Argenthoz estate, Cordelia is becoming suspicious of this new Yvonne, who doesn't lash out or act like a spoiled brat. She hasn't risen to any of the princess's taunts and continues to smile and act polite throughout their whole conversation. It makes Cordelia all the more certain that Yvonne is dangerous. If she can act this calm in front of her enemy, then she must be plotting something. Frustrated, Cordelia is the one who ends up having an outburst. She outright accuses Yvonne of trying to steal Adrian and calls her a wicked woman who has disgraced herself by using a handsome duke with a good reputation and dragging him down for her own evil intent. Okay, go off, I guess. She's hoping that Yvonne will take the bait and run wild, destroying herself so that Cordelia doesn't have to. But instead of releasing a torrent of fire or using her magic to attack the protagonist, the Princess Argenthoz calmly takes a bite of a cherry and tells Cordelia she has nothing to worry about. Pouring herself a cup of tea, she suggests that if she's worried about His Highness being swayed, she should speak to him instead. Boom. Mic drop. Look at that shocked face! Cordelia doesn't know what to say. Before she can cause any more drama, Barden butts in and firmly tells the princess to leave. Cordelia swallows her pride. Clearly, she's not going to be able to accomplish what she hoped, so she apologizes for yelling at Yvonne and switches tactics. She turns to the box she brought, explaining that a maid gave it to her. It's a present from Adrian, but it wasn't meant for Cordelia. It was meant for Yvonne. She leaves it behind, excusing herself with another apology and walking right out. The Argenthoz siblings are straight up confused by her actions. The heroine did one thing right. She successfully convinced them both that she's nothing more than a crazy lovesick girl. They have no idea that she's really the dark wizard who attacked them just last night. Barden congratulates his sister on not popping off the way she used to. She jokes that it was all because she knew he was listening outside the door and didn't want him to blow a fuse. He offers to throw the present straight away, but Yvonne says she'll take care of it. Oh, I really hope she's not stupid enough to open it. Barden was right. That box belongs in the bin. On the way back to the palace, Cordelia is sitting in her carriage when she summons Pembe, one of the shadow spirits that calls to her. It is this little creature who is charged with finding the bracelet from the demon attack. Cordelia tells Pembe to keep an eye on it and to get rid of it when he finds an opportunity. Any earlier than that, and it will be easy to connect its disappearance with her and will raise their suspicions. So that takes care of the bracelet. Now, what about Yvonne? Cordelia didn't believe the rumors that she'd change, but after today, it's clear she's done a total 180. You could almost say she's a different person. It makes her plan a little more shaky. Perhaps if this new Yvonne is too calm, she won't use the gift in the box, the so-called Fountain of the Sun. You might be expecting some awful paralyzing poison, but this is more subtle than that. It was originally made to give nobles glowing, beautiful skin, but if it's used too often, it causes a hideous skin disease. Wait, is this the disease Yvonne remembered from the novel? The one that Cordelia is supposed to solve? Does this mean she actually caused it? This girl isn't acting like a protagonist at all. Pembe can tell she's frustrated and offers an alternative. While he was sneaking around, he picked up on a black magic aura from Yvonne. If she's a dark wizard, then that would explain why she heard the demon before anyone else. It also gives Cordelia another option. Just accuse her enemy of practicing black magic, and the Imperial family will take care of the rest. But I thought Yvonne hadn't turned into a dark wizard yet. Has she already made a pact with the devil at this point? I'm getting so confused. Anyway, moving away from that evil little girl, the next visitor to the Argenthoz household is Roden Yales. Ever the gentleman, he's even brought a bouquet. Before entering the estate, he pauses, watching Yvonne slam open a window from above. She throws out an earring, the one she gave her maid Carol. You know, the one that's secretly a bomb? What the heck is going on? This is total chaos. 15 minutes before his arrival, Yvonne had opened the gift to discover the Fountain of the Sun lotion. Carol notices the bottle and mentions that it's very expensive, about 10 million gold just for one, because apparently everything in this world costs exactly 10 million gold. Instead of throwing it away, she decides to sell it. But while Carol is convincing her to put it to use, Yvonne notices that one of her earrings has lit up bright red. Uh-oh. Without thinking, Yvonne grabs it, pulling it off her ear and sprinting to the window. She wasn't expecting anyone to be in the garden. But as the earrings sailed down through the air, time seemed to slow and suddenly she saw the Duke. And the next moment, everything was on fire. When the smoke cleared, Yvonne ran to look for Roden and saw only singed flower petals. Beneath them was the Duke, perfectly unharmed, standing with his sword and a protective shield around him. Well, I'm very glad he's safe, but girl, you've got some serious explaining to do. Unable to look at his sad little face, she stumbles away from the window to check that Carol is okay. She asks her to summon some servants to clear up the mess, while she sprints downstairs to fix things with Roden. Not only does she not want to hurt his feelings, but she still thinks he's an investigator, remember? If he was part of an organization trying to find out if she's a threat to society, then she just did about the worst thing possible. Almost the entire household staff are gathered outside by the front doors. Somehow, the damage is pretty minimal, despite the scale of the explosion. Apparently, the Duke used his aura to absorb the explosion. There's a small crowd of people around him, all trying to check that he's okay. He makes eye contact with Yvonne and still manages a smile. Even though from his perspective, it looks like she just tried to blow him up. Okay, that's too loyal for your own good. Shouldn't he be mad? She asks if he's okay and takes the very burnt flowers, politely pretending to love them just the way they are. Yales explains that he was invited for dinner by her father, which is a surprise in itself. He's also very early, which only makes Yvonne more suspicious of his real intentions. At this point, I can't blame her. That man just survived an assassination attempt and is still head over heels for this girl. I'd be suspicious too. He even covered for her in front of the head of security, claiming that there were no witnesses and he didn't see what happened. Yeah, right. Acting like it was all just a little mishap, they brush it under the carpet. Yvonne leads him up to her guest room and thanks him for staying quiet. She also apologizes and explains what really happened, how it was all a very unfortunate accident. But Roden gets snagged on one little detail. Why didn't she use a magical defense after she threw it? While she's panicking, wondering how to answer an investigator, the Duke walks up to her and asks her right out. Was she trying to kill him? Oh geez. Here we go. She's still scrambling to come up with an answer when the Duke finds one for her. He thinks she was testing him. It turns out he did a lot of research after developing a crush and learned all about her proclivity for drama and bombs. He saw the bomb as a chance to prove himself that he could handle her and also prove his swordsmanship. Wow, he's so much more delusional than we thought. Yvonne rightly thinks he's a bit insane, so she invites him to sit down so they can talk it out. He explains his theory and how he thought it was a similar situation to when the old Yvonne threw a bomb at Cordelia and the Crown Prince protected her. While his rationale is crazy, hers is even worse. She still thinks this is all about investigating her for dark magic, so she goes along with it and admits it was all a test. Insane. Oh my god, everything would just be so much easier if she told him the truth. She asks him not to pass this on to the Crown Prince, since in her mind, that's who he's reporting to. Of course, Roden isn't happy to hear Adrian's name come up in conversation, since he's basically the ex, but he agrees to keep it quiet anyway. He's even salvaged the remains of the earrings so that there would be no evidence for the others to find. He also offers to take care of the captain of security, who is doing a thorough job at investigating. Now, I don't know what take care of means up north, but that sounds pretty damn concerning to me. Actually, he just meant that they should close up the investigation as soon as possible so as not to raise any more suspicion. He brought an artifact from his own estate used for communication and crushes it up in his palm. That way, it looks like he was the one who accidentally brought an explosive device to the manor. And no one is going to arrest the Duke. But he does want a little something in return. Leaning in close, he asks Yvonne if she could do him a favor. So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!